On the Steve Cochran Show on the Big 89 WLS, I'm Matt Bubala. That's Andrea Darlas. Nick Gale's in the newsroom. And Tom Appel, our friend from Consumer Guide Automotive, is on the phone. Hey, Tom, how are you today?
I am well. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for being with us. You know, the big automotive news, there's always a lot of automotive news, especially in the last couple of years with the pandemic and the chip shortages. But the UAW strike that's been going on and affecting a lot of union workers, we seem to be reaching some tentative deals. What's the latest?
The latest is General Motors has a deal in place and that workers are going back to work in advance of a ratification vote. So the big news here and what we're watching for is in a week or two we should have ratification votes from Stellantis, from Ford, from General Motors, where the rank and file workers will vote on these contracts and hopefully approve them so everything will return to normal.
Is there one thing that's been the major sticking point that's the reason they're on strike right now?
Couple of things. I mean, the big thing obviously was wages. Everyone wants to make more money. That was the big deal. But the other interesting things that were being fought for here, and I don't know that everyone knew about these, two-tier wage system is something that the UAW was pushing back against, and that's where newer workers do not make nearly as much as the established workers. And before the strike, it took 8 years to get those wages up to the same as the other workers on the assembly line. That's been cut to 3 in every contract. The other thing is they wanted pensions. They did not get those, but they also wanted, the rank and file workers and the UAW wanted to be sure that jobs that were in these new battery plants going up anywhere would be covered under this master agreement.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I heard about the battery plant issues, and with EVs becoming such the future of automotive, right? Is there a difference in the contracts? Is there concern for the union workers that the automakers are going to be able to change things as the cars themselves change?
Yeah, there's a lot of concern there. One of the issues, too, and everyone knows this, and it might be why this was such a contentious battle now, is that EV vehicle plants, and especially EV battery plants, require less work. They require less labor, up to a third less labor. So this might be the largest UAW population that we see in a long time unless the UAW starts to get into other factories. And one of the things they're talking about is getting into Tesla.
Interesting. Boy, I see that being a battle with Elon Musk.
I'm sure it's a huge battle, and it's a great one to get into because that company seems to be growing, and they have a lot of workers, many of whom sound like they're not as happy as other auto line workers. So it seems like this is something that could be done.
Tom, want to continue the conversation about EVs, especially because just a couple of days ago, Governor Pritzker basically doubled down on the electric vehicles, talking about these new charging stations that are going to be built, every so many miles in Illinois. So it's going to be bigger than I guess I even anticipated. He's got this goal of having Illinois be a certain percentage of EVs by 2030.
Yeah, and that's tough to do and it's tough to know. And we're running into a situation right now where EV growth last quarter was the biggest quarter ever for EV sales. Something like 818,000 units were sold. So that's good news for manufacturers. Their plan is working. But it seems like there's probably more product out there right now than there is demand for that product, and that's going to be misconstrued as reduced interest in the vehicles, which may not be the case. But manufacturers are now struggling because what Tesla is doing to mess with demand is cutting its prices dramatically to try to maintain its market share, and this is slowing demand for other vehicles.
And everybody's producing an electric vehicle now. It seems like all the commercials we see, there's new companies coming out that are all electric. What do you think, Tom? I've driven, Andrea, I don't know if you've driven an electric car. I rented one through Hertz. I rented a Polestar.
Okay.
And
I've driven a Volkswagen.
Okay. It was the first time I'd done it. And it's certainly a different feeling.
Yeah.
And I've heard from friends who have issues driving in electric vehicles, like a sort of a motion sickness issue. There seem to be some things that come along with that. What's your feeling on the EV overall, Tom?
Generally, I find that EVs present very well on a test drive, and that people who drive them for the first time are almost universally impressed. You have the immediate power, you have the quietness and the drivetrain smoothness. These are all really big advantages. And until you get to the figuring out how and where you're going to charge, really it's a better vehicle than a gasoline-powered vehicle.
I was a passenger in a Ford Mustang EV, which was
I like the look of that.
Beautiful. Yeah. It was a nice ride. But you know what, Tom? No AM radio in that car.
That is a crazy problem.
Yeah.
I've written
It
about
is.
that. But the Mustang Mach-E, all the Volkswagens, and a lot of the European EVs, and even European plug-in hybrids, do not come with AM radio.
Right?
Yeah, it messes with the electricity. They have
Yeah.
trouble tuning it in. Mm-hmm. They got to fix that, Tom.
They can fix that. That's the frustrating part of this, right? We know that the Chevrolet Bolt, for example, it's a very affordable little EV, comes with AM radio.
Well, and I believe there's been testimony in front of Congress about this, making sure to protect the AM band, because if you think about it, in times of national emergency, stations like this that can reach many states over are very important still to have. So I hope that they do make sure to take care of that and protect stations like this.
Yeah, if you care, just send enough letters. It's not that big a deal. Manufacturers can fix this. It's a question of shielding the motor or shielding the radio receiver from the motors. It's not an undoable task. We already have the technology. There's just some money involved.
Tom, one more question for you. Going back to the UAW agreement, if it is in fact ratified, agreed to, and whatnot, there's an assembly plant in Belvidere that was shuttered. I think 1,300 workers were left without jobs. Are there talks of that reopening?
Yeah, this is a great story. Belvidere was shuttered last year. 1,200 workers, I think, were laid off, and it looks like they might hire as many as 1,200 or 1,300 back. But that plant is going to be used, and this is kind of a surprise, and that's the kind of news you get out of a strike like this, to build a mid-sized pickup truck. It looks like they'll put 2 shifts there. And then additional good news, somewhere in that factory's campus, it looks like a battery plant is going to go in as well.
Oh, that's nice. Good. I hope that happens.
And Tom, what's the latest on Rivian, our little truck that could down in Bloomington, Illinois? How is that doing?
Rivian is doing fine. They've had some problems with pricing, and they had some problems, too, with allocation. Rivian builds, based on the same architecture, a pickup truck and a crossover, and they had built way too many crossovers, and their allocation was kind of screwed up. They moved to the crossover, and they seem to be doing well. They're having a hard time still ramping up production. And their pricing is just a little high, and people seem to be backing off. So if the price is too high, they don't qualify for the federal tax credit, of course, and that's a problem.
Tom Appel is the publisher of Consumer Guide Automotive. We always appreciate your time, sir. Have a great day.
Pleasure was mine. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.